Welcome to Explaining the Plays, Shockspitter Hunter. I'm Uncorrupt, and I'm going to take us through some Shockspitter Hunter gameplay. But before we get to that, I do want to take a quick look at the deck. This list is actually directly from Vicious Syndicate. You're going to be able to find this deck code in the description. I also believe I have a link to a mobile copy of the deck if you'd like to be able to play it for yourself. And just taking a quick look at the list here, it's exactly what you would expect from Shockspitter Hunter. We, of course, are running the Shockspitters. Along with the weapons here, we've got 2 Bloodseekers. We also have 2 Candle Shots. One thing that you're going to notice is this version of the deck is not running Zola. Turns out that you just don't need the card. It's really not that good. But we are, of course, running Brand because being able to duplicate the battle cries that are going to be coming off of the Shockspitters to be able to kill our opponent is actually really, really strong. Also running 2 copies of the Keen Eye Spotter here. That just helps us to be able to fight for the board. In certain matchups, it's going to be important to be able to fight for the board. Make sure that we don't take too much damage from the minions on our opponent's side. So there's going to be times where we're not playing this like a face deck where we're just hitting our opponent in the face every single turn no matter what. We're going to have to think about what we're doing, make sure that we take some trades where appropriate. Keen Eye Spotter certainly helps that. And of course, with the Candle Shot, we'll be able to remove any minion on the board, and it's not going to do any damage to us whatsoever. So we've got the bonus there. We're also running a small Wild Seed package here, Spirit Poachers and Wild Spirits, really just core in every Hunter list, just very, very good cards. Also the potential that we can get the Dormant that's going to give us the 3/2 weapon, which again is just really strong. Weapons are good in this deck because they're going to be buffing the Shockspitters. Then you're also going to notice we're running Beaststalker Tavish, again, pretty much a core card in every Hunter deck. It's just a really, really strong card. And also running Hydralodon in this deck, that gives us an extra option to be able to hit with Selective Breeder. And it's an additional beast that could be discounted by something like a Stormpike Battle Ram. So we do have some options in the deck. We want to make sure that we don't focus too much on the Shockspitters. At times it's going to be appropriate to play for maybe Hydralodon, specifically in matchups where there's going to be minions on the opponent's side of the board, but maybe our opponent's class can't clear the board. For example, I'm specifically thinking of Rogue. If you get a Hydralodon down and you get a bunch of the Hydralodon heads, Rogue doesn't really have any AoE damage to be able to clear our entire side of the board, so it can be really, really good in that matchup. Hydralodon likely, though, alternatively, going to be worthless or near worthless in, say, the Demon Hunter matchup. First of all, because it's probably just a little bit too expensive for that matchup, and second of all, because Demon Hunter really just not going to be playing minions whatsoever. The general mulligan for this list, we always want to keep weapons, so we would be looking to keep Candle Shots, we would be looking to keep Bloodseeker. I personally would only keep 1 weapon, so if I had a Candle Shot, I would probably throw away the Bloodseeker. Additional keeps, we would also keep the Spirit Poacher, we would keep Wild Spirits, and Beaststalker Tavish actually also is a keep. This card just really, really strong, and keeping in mind if we can actually hit the Motion Denied when our opponent plays 3 cards, they take 9 damage. That 9 damage is really huge for a deck that has the burst potential that this deck has with the Shockspitters. That's going to do it for taking a look at the deck. Let's jump into a game and see how it plays. Looks like we've got a Hunter here. I would expect that this would either be a mirror match, it could possibly be a Rogue. I'm going to toss the Devouring Swarm. I'm going to keep Candle Shot and Iron Deep Trog here. If it's a Rogue, I really like Trog, especially if we're going first. It can just kind of cause them a little bit of problems. Let us get in some chip damage. And I'm just going to go ahead and play the Trog here. I mean, there's, probably an argument to play Candle Shot because you can start stacking the Shockspitter damage. But I just like having the Trog on the board. And seeing the Trog from our opponent means that this is going to be a mirror match. And we're just going to go ahead and take this trade here. Pass it back to our opponent. So we're off to a pretty good start. We've got our weapon equipped. And we're going to start swinging. We have a second weapon in hand, which means we're going to be able to build our Shockspitter damage as quickly as possible. And we see that our opponent's actually playing a different list here. They got the K-Nanotron coming down. Probably just going to drop this Keen Eye Spotter. That's going to allow us to be able to trade into the 2/3 with our weapon. We're going to be able to develop our board a little bit. We're going to be able to remove their board. They actually hit second Trog with the K-Nanotron, so that's a pretty good dredge for them off the bottom. Just going to keep to the plan here, Keen Eye Spotter, and then we're going to go ahead and take this trade on the K-Nanotron. And then our Trog is going to go face. We're just going to go ahead and get in that 1 chip damage, and then next turn we should be able to kill our opponent's Trog on the other side of the board, if that appears to be the best play. And they take the trade, and they coin out the Stormpike Battle Ram here, so pretty good for them. We're going to keep in mind that they have the mana discount on beasts. And this is just going to be a straightforward, we're going to play our minions here, so going to go ahead and trade for the Trog first. And then I'm going to get down Spirit Poacher and Selective Breeder. And the Breeder this game, we're definitely going to want to go for a Shockspitter. Just because we have so many weapons, we're going to be able to get that damage up really quickly. I think one of the dangers when you're playing this deck is actually tunnel visioning the Shockspitter. You don't always want to do that. Our opponent with the Selective Breeder here, and we know that they have the discount from the Stormpike Battle Ram, I would not be surprised if they actually picked Hydrolodon. Assuming they run Hydrolodon, they're going to be able to get it down on turn 5 thanks to that discount. So we're likely going to be seeing Hydrolodon come down. It's going to have minions on the board that it can trade into, which means our opponent's going to have a very, very wide board, and there's nothing we can do about it. So if they're playing correctly, and if they have Hydrolodon in their deck, then Hydrolodon is what's coming down. Pretty straightforward Wild Spirits here off of the tracking, just because it's going to let us spend our mana. And it's also going to get our 2/4 taunt in place. And then we're able to clear off their 1/3. And we're going to swing face with as much damage as possible. So we're going to need to be able to set up lethal here really quickly. Just expecting the Hydrolodon to come down. It's going to be a very, very wide board with lots of damage. They do have the Hydrolodon. That's as expected. That's very good play from our opponent. And you can see here that... you know, again, this is just correct play from them. They're not tunnel visioning the Shockspitters. Hydrolodon, 100% the correct pick from them. And again, that's just kind of one of the things in the deck that you have to keep in mind. Sometimes with Selective Breeder, you're maybe not taking Shockspitters, but you can also take Battle Rams for the discount if you need it, or Hydrolodon. And I just want to send as much damage face as I can here. Picking up the Shockspitters, we can actually set up lethal for the following turn, so... This puts our opponent to 15, and next turn we're going to be able to weapon swing for 1, and then our 2 Shockspitters are going to do 7 each. Assuming there's no Tavish and no Taunt that's going to come down from our opponent in some way, we should be able to have lethal next turn. That's not a Tavish. And hopefully we're not going to get anything too crazy from our opponent here. And... kind of expecting more trades, just because, well, that's interesting. They're actually running Doggy Biscuit, so their list actually significantly different from the list that we have on our side here. They do make the trades. They're trying to preserve their health as much as possible, and you can see that they've actually been able to set up lethal while taking all the trades. But unfortunately for our opponent, this is actually going to end the game with exact lethal here. So we played the game correctly because we were focused on Shockspitters. We went first. We had initiative, and we had 2 weapons in hand to be able to develop our Shockspitter damage. And then also you can see that our opponent also played correctly. You know, I can't see exactly what was in their hand, but it looks like they made every correct play. Unfortunately, sometimes in Hearthstone, you can make all the correct plays, and you actually just don't get there. So GG to our opponent. They played very, very well. I'm Uncorrupt. Thank you for watching, and good luck out on the ladder.